You know, it makes people laugh, even if they don't agree with you. As long as you're not completely insulting them, and you don't, completely, you know, insult who they are as a human being because they don't share the same
And
opinions.
do it without tact. I think tact is like, a very big part of,
That's another thing about, like, in these times it's like, alright, so you can't poke fun at, like, this group now because it's a little, it's just not really much very acceptable anymore. But, like, really, you got to be able to poke fun at everybody. Like, I have a big, firm belief on that, like,
the South Park.
the day you can't, it's like, what have we come to?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The idea that you can't make fun of people is ridiculous. The internet is for sure exposing that. And one of the things about the internet, especially like message boards, is that you're anonymous on message boards. So everyone is fucking ruthless. Everyone, because there's no social consequences. You say something, you don't have to look at the guy in the face when you shit on his girlfriend. And it's like, oh, you fucking that pig. Like guys will post pictures of their girlfriends online. You're like, oh, I can't believe you did that. Because dudes, it doesn't matter if they could never date a girl that looks like that. They will shit all over her. She could be a fucking professional model. They will shit all over her. Porn star shit all over her. I mean, it doesn't. But there's something good about that. I think. When someone makes fun of you, it doesn't define you. It only defines you if you let their definition change your own personal definition. And that's a matter of personal sovereignty, and that's really like a test for you. Like when someone shits on you, and if it actually hurts your feelings, well, your own view of yourself is either inaccurate, or it's not objective, or you're not scrutinizing yourself as closely as you should be. But I think it's funny when people make fun of me. There's hundreds of photoshops online that I encourage of dudes. They got me. I'm like chicks in porno films smiling, and it's funny to me. I say this: the golden rule of the internet is if there's a photo of you on the internet somewhere, someone has photoshopped a dick in your mouth. Yeah. That's just a fact. That's just how the internet works. I think that's good. I think it allows people to take themselves less seriously.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part. I think we're at this really pivotal kind of moment in history, and I feel like we're on the verge of a cultural renaissance, if not in it, and people are just, there's a cultural indifference because there's so much. Like, you get bombarded with negative, just fucking news all the time, and it's really depressing, and, I, stopped watching network news. I can't deal with it. It just, brings me down. You're like, oh, that...
Here's the problem with network news and any news in general, is that you see some terrible thing that's happening, and it affects you, and you go, God, now I'm bummed out. I saw some video online the other day that bummed me out. This guy, SWAT team in Missouri, broke into his house, shot his fucking dog. Yeah, the guy had a little tiny amount of weed on him, not even enough for a misdemeanor charge. It's and I think where he lives, weed is decriminalized. I think it's one of those cities I'm not exactly sure about that. That was something that someone said on the internet. But the bottom line is, I watched this video and it bummed me out. And I thought about fuck, the world sucks. All this shit like this can happen. This is just a few fucking idiots in one part of the world where they got bad information, and there's 300 fucking million people in this country, and one bad thing happens to one person, one of us, in one place, and you fixate on that, but you don't fixate on the other, 300 million people that are having a good time. It's the problem with the access to information is that if you choose to focus on negative shit, you can paint a picture of the world that's very fucking dreary. We have to learn to manage this access to information and not fixate. I mean, you can go to one of those sites, that only shows dudes getting hit by cars and fucking animal attacks and guys in Russia cutting people's heads off, and you can fixate on that, and you can think, well, the fucking human race is doomed, and miss going to TED. We're watching those TED videos.
That's great.
Fucking amazing. It's where you think all these intelligent people figuring out this crazy shit, and go to these different science sites that are talking about these new experiments, and this smart dust they're figuring out. This smart dust.
I haven't heard about those.
Some new thing that HP is putting together.
Is that the stuff that you put? It's what they put in oil, metallic fragments, and they can actually make it with electric. Fields come together and stick onto pistons and
No, this is a totally different thing. This is things that are literally the size of a grain of sand, and they're going to be able to transmit and receive data they're going to have their own power supply, and they're going to be able to transmit information. So they're going to be sensors, and they're going to put trillions of them all over the world. And they're talking about it like it's a net for the whole world, like literally a global net of information with these little tiny sensors. And they'll be able to tune in and find out, and be able to more accurately predict earthquakes and natural disasters and fucking spy on people too. I mean, it's
That's
gonna be
what it is.
nuts. I mean, they're using a similar sort of technology in San Francisco now. They're putting it in place to let people know when parking spots are available. And you're going to be able to have like a thing in your car where you press a button. I want to park on 10th Street. You press this button, and it's going to show you on a grid where there's no cars, because it's going to know when there's a car in this spot. I mean, and that's like one application of something like this. But this is really interesting, fascinating shit that you could fixate on. Or you could watch, some video of, some girl getting beat up by her boyfriend and, some apartment, security camera, and freak out and go, man, people suck. It's like... There's so much information, you have to learn how to manage it. You should be aware of all the bad shit. I think it's important to be aware of the spectrum of human behavior. But it's also important to not fixate on negative shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to the whole idea of moderation and balance. Like, a lot of people tend to, go to poles, and whereas if you get into the middle of something, you have a lot more of a grounded perspective in reality. Like, I mean, with Rowan Break, for instance, we noticed that, like, the news really does drive home the fact that shit's wrong, because it sells
right,
advertising
right.
and whatever, and it gets people like, oh no, what happened? Oh. But I think that you could have the same impact by just focusing on like positive, fun stuff, and if you in terms of shaping the collective, perspective or mentality, if you're kind of making them fixate on the positive stuff. Then when the bad stuff comes, they could kind of move past it quicker, or move past it easier, because they're like, listen, yeah, that's bad. Like, for instance, I found out this morning that one of my childhood friends died. And that was like really bad, but I'm like, there's a lot of he was a good kid. I had a lot of good memories with him. It's just life. This happens. It is what it is. But like, you can't let that bring you down and like ruin your life, because it's you have to kind of move past it. So knowing that there's a lot of good things in the world, I think helps. Like, in terms of keeping like optimistic, and then when you have that decreases energy almost between people, where they're like, well, let's do this, and like, let's just do it for the sake of having a good time. Like,
yeah. Like
next Saturday we're putting on a music festival in our backyard, just like a grassroots thing, just to give people like a nice end of the semester graduation thing, and like it's kind of illegal, but we don't give a shit, because we covered enough of our legal bases. We're like, what, if the cops want to come and be dicks about this, we could tell them basically go get a warrant, and if you want to get a warrant, it's on a Saturday, good luck with that. So it's like, that's kind of like the mentality I think we're trying to do with Roam Break, is kind of get people thinking more about looking at like, the positive things less than the negative. It's kind of the reverse of network news in a way.
Yeah, I think it's like your life is, a thing that you manage, and your friendships are a thing that you manage. You don't want a bunch of negative people in your life, and if you have a healthy life, you chop as many negative people out as possible. You avoid them, you break up with psycho ex-girlfriends, there's a dude that you hang out with that gets arrested all the time. When you go out, you fucking avoid him, and you manage it. I think you have to manage your access to information, the way you look at the world, the exact same way. I mean, you could choose to just only put yourself in bad neighborhoods, and only put yourself around people that are getting in fucked up situations, and your whole life is going to be a chaotic mess. Or just like, online, you can do the exact same thing. You could choose to only look at fucked up things and only concentrate on doom and gloom and corruption and and horrible evil stories in the news. Or you could say, well, you know what, I'm going to cut that shit out of my life. I'm aware that stuff exists, and I'm not delusional. I'm not being ignorant of it. I'm just going to focus and concentrate on positive energy and positive things. It's like, your view of the world and how you manage information is very much like how you manage your own life, how you manage your friendships. How you manage your personal relationships, your jobs. I mean, you could work at a job that's fucking horrible and have an abusive boss, and you have to, at a certain point in time, you have to make a decision. Like, I gotta save up some money so I can get the fuck out of here. Like, this is not good for me. And that's the same thing with with the internet. You have to manage the positive and the negative aspects of it. And there's a reason why the negative is there.